All right, what's up? Welcome to a new episode of Movie Schmovie. This is episode number 285. I'm one of your co-hosts. My name is Steve, and I'm here, as always, with...
I'm Ron.
And I'm John.
And that's the tripod right there. That's the three of us.
That's us.
Yep.
Connect those dots. That's us. How you guys doing this week?
Pretty good, man.
Yeah, Ronald, you had a big couple, well, a big week, but coming out of that, you have a lot of stuff going on, man.
Insane.
By the way, for the world to know, congratulations, Ronald.
Thank
married
you. I got internet married.
To the lovely Aaron.
Yeah. So
with it spelled with an I, not with a Y.
Yeah. Your wife with a Y, mine with an I.
Your wife.
My wife. Sounds very
wife.
strange to say, but sounds really good.
Yeah.
Baltimore County Courthouse wasn't open for marriages, and we had actually planned a big wedding that was set to be on the 17th, and we couldn't do it, which was kind of heartbreaking to me. But we kind of had decided to get a house to get all the stuff, so I figured that we kind of plan it very close together so that it felt special, almost like a wedding, but not a wedding. So
definitely.
The other week we got married. The day that Biden was inaugurated. And I got a story about that in a second. And then we got married, and then we closed on a house that we had been looking at for a while, which I'm really excited about, because this is, I haven't been an adult, for a really long time. And it feels really strange to kind of step into my adulthood in this way.
Now, do you mean you haven't been an adult for very long, or do you mean it's been a long time since you've been an adult?
Or you've never been?
I don't think I've ever been. There's a lot of things that what I realized? There's like markers that people have. Like, I've lived on my own for quite some time, but that wasn't the mile marker, because you can live with other people and it could kind of be like a dorm sort of situation. Yeah. I had a decent job. I've always worked my whole life, worked since I was 13. So that never felt like special, but getting married feels really special, and getting a house feels very special. And it'll be nice,
and getting a new president can feel pretty special.
A new president.
You did it all. Boom, boom, boom.
I legitimately planned it on that day. So we have this remote wedding. It's over. But my mom's kind of says something in her my mom is also engaged, which is also really crazy. So she FaceTimes me afterwards, and I'm like, "Where are you at?" And she's like, "I'm in DC." I'm like, "Cool." She's like, "Yeah, after this, we're gonna walk to the inauguration." She texts me later. She's like, "Hey, you never gonna believe this." So I'm talking, and Cory Booker comes up to me and says, your fiance was trying to come up with a way to, propose. And I gave him a couple tips. As that's happening, Rosario Dawson comes and just like gives my mom the safest hug that she could give her in COVID. Wow. And there's some magic to that.
Hugged by a Jedi? Yeah, there's magic.
Yeah, really. Yeah. Does she even know?
No, hell no, she doesn't know. And I think I'll show, when I show her, she'll be pretty impressed by that. So, but she knows Rosario Dawson's work. But it's been this weird set of events that have kind of happened. Some sadness because I couldn't celebrate it with my pop, but it's pretty incredible. And I'm glad that everybody's at least seen some portion of it. Whether it was the celebration of it afterwards when we announced it, because a lot of people didn't know. You guys were some of the first to know, so
you sent us a dummy link just to keep us busy for a while, trying to log in while the actual wedding was happening.
10 minutes.
A trick link.
They gave us 10 minutes to give
out
that
Rick
link.
Astley.
It was a ridiculous situation, man. Don't ever get married that way.
Though.
Yeah,
no, it's good that it worked out, man.
Thank you so much.
No,
you're so happy for both
Ronald,
of you.
Yeah.
Thank
Steve, you were going to say it.
Better than good, John. Better than good.
It's nuts, but thank you, man.
Yeah, two beautiful people.
Just to say too, like we talk about it all the time on the podcast. Talk about our families, our friends, everything. For the time that you've been talking on the podcast, off the podcast, us about Aaron and your plans for life with her and everything like that. In all seriousness, super happy that you finally got to take that step and that's like official, and that you guys are one now. You know, it's pretty awesome to not only know how excited you are about it and going into it and everything, and to see it finally happen. You know, it's all our little side texts, like all the drama about like you getting the ring in time to propose, and I remember all that good stuff. You know, like we've all shared those stories at those points in our lives, like we've had big things come up, and you know, so it's nice to see a check off the list, 2 checks off the list for you.
Thanks.
And you know, best of luck with everything, man.
Thanks. Getting a dog next?
Yes. That, you know, we were actually going to get a dog in COVID, man. We were actually planning on getting a dog. I want a small dog. I had a chow mixed before. One of the most aggressive dogs I've ever had, you know, one of the most aggressive animals I've ever had. Any women that came near me, Bambi Q from Star Trek The Next Generation, would destroy anybody. Any woman that came near me. So I want a dog that's a little nicer to women and everybody else. So crazy. But yeah, dogs next. I can't wait for you to see the house. That's been kind of my, like, really, you know, I can't wait for you guys to see the house.
When the world's safer and better, we should do like a remote record at your house.
Yeah,
Yes.
like sitting out on the porch, like appropriately distanced. Yeah, that'll
Yeah.
be nice.
Yeah. Let's do it, man. Let's do it. But how you guys doing?
Good stuff.
You guys good?
I mean, I didn't get married to buy a house or anything like that, but I got a new president.
Yeah, I mean that's like getting a new house. You did get a new house. Yeah, and I know we're not, you know, we get political every once in a while, but this is legitimately the start of something that isn't quite as divisive, that isn't quite as, because, you know,
whether people want to admit it or not, you know.
I think people even on the other side will feel like that too.
I think decency matters, and I like the idea that we are maybe even just temporarily clawing back in that direction.
Yeah,
totally agree. It feels really good.
Yeah, I don't think I've seen as many fist fights ever in the past 4 years. Like viral videos of people just be like, "Who'd you vote for?" It's just like, what? That shouldn't even be a thing. And I'm glad that.
And it was weird that you were in half of them.
Yeah, I was, man. Running punches.
They were all. That's your signature move, right?
Always in from the side.
It's my signature move, man. A running punch.
We call it the Mortal Kombat because you kind of come in directly from the side.
The two-dimensional punch.
So outside of our personal lives, what news-wise have we been seeing here? Movie, TV, whatever. Anything you guys want to bring up and talk about before we get into the kind of guts of the episode?
Ryan Coogler got an overall development deal, a 5-year deal for Disney. It looks like, I mean, you know, for the casual viewer, you know, you just saw the Wakanda series, right? But he has quite a bit coming out. And for context, Ryan Coogler has actually had his hand in some of the Disney Plus Marvel stuff that's coming out. So, you know, we're going to see some mixing of the brands and the you know, people we haven't seen together. People are saying that maybe he may have had some hand in Ironheart, which sounds really cool. So, yeah, man. Ryan Coogler, overall deal, 5 years, Disney. Though he's in the Disney business, he's in the Wakanda business. And I think some of it kind of came from him kind of touching things like Judas and the Black Messiah and stuff like that. They saw him touching that stuff and they're like, oh shit, the mouse has to pay up. And it looks like he paid up, and Ryan Coogler's now part of the family for 5 years or so.
Well, lock him down, because that's smart, right?
Lock him down.
But also the Wakanda series kind of answers that question that we all had about, like, what's a way forward for that series, for that group of characters, whatever you want to call it, that franchise, without Chadwick Boseman, that doesn't feel disrespectful. Right. I mean, I don't know if Black Panther 2 is still being talked about, or if they've explained how that might dovetail with this. But to me, the question of what can they do now, Wakanda the series seems like a shoe-in, because there's so many great characters you can follow, and you can still find some way to pay respect to that character without recasting it or having someone immediately step into that role or something, which again they can do, but I think everyone's going to be watching them very carefully, and knowing that it's Ryan Coogler that's kind of shepherding that stuff, it just feels right.
What kind of people would Disney be if they didn't jump on this momentum of the past, you know, the diversity and just Black Panther being a good movie.
Yeah, you look at every platform, and like John kind of said before, you know, you see them all kind of like just clamoring to like lock these people down, you know, to deals. Like you see, you know, some of these TV producers, showrunners jumping from network to network or network to streaming, to Netflix or whatever, and then you kind of see that graying a little bit, where you see like filmmakers, writers, directors, producers, you know, kind of dipping in and out of those roles in these deals. Like Ryan Coogler is one of the best out there right now, and he has a great run going right now. So it's like, you know, he's only on an upward trajectory. So it's like he's not tied down to Netflix or to Apple TV Plus or whatever it might be, even though he may be doing things with some of those places already prior to this overall deal. But it's just like you see, you know, Coogler, you see Taika, you see the Russo brothers, and, you know, these filmmakers coming out of not only the Marvel system, but just like some of these other IPs that are floating around that are big theatrical IP. It's a given that like eventually all of them will have some sort of lockdown thing. Like Fincher has a deal now with Netflix. You know, you see them just trying to find all of these filmmakers that are just really successful or on great runs, and it's like we want them to be here. And whether it's for series or for films or whatever ends up, you know, Coogler ends up doing, he's a no-brainer. And you know, he's made movies that have been, you know, in our top 10 lists for the past 5 years, 6 years. And you know, whatever he has coming out next, I think anybody is excited for. So yeah, I mean, that's a really big announcement for them. And the series itself, like the Wakanda series, yeah, I mean, obvious no-brainer. Like, you know, one of the greatest world creations that they've done in any of the Marvel movies.
Yeah.
And, you know, what better way to explore that in you know, than in a series on Disney Plus. So I'm very excited for that.
Me too, man.
I was going to mention, did you guys see that they finally announced an actual like direct sequel to Cloverfield?
Really?
Yeah, a couple of days ago they announced,
Whoa.
Paramount and Bad Robot, they're coming out with a Joe Barton, who is the writer who I think took over the Batman series that's coming to HBO Max. He has been brought on to write the movie, which is apparently not a found footage film. But I don't know what capacity Reeves or JJ, outside of producing, or if who ends up even directing this. But this has kind of been the first one that's, you know, outside of the Cloverfield universe that these movies have kind of hovered around, like Cloverfield Paradox. I don't know. I think it's kind of cool. Like, I love Cloverfield. I love 10 Cloverfield Lane. Not so much Cloverfield Paradox, but I would be very interested to see a sequel to Cloverfield, especially something maybe a little different than the found footage. Just because I think they did a really good job with that in the first one, and like kind of that couldn't be left alone. Like, I feel like they'd be kind of cool to see just a straight up like what's next in this Cloverfield world now that this kind of like monster or monsters, you know, exist.
Big twist. This one's not a Cloverfield film.
Yeah.
Right? That's what they'll do. They'll call it Cloverfield 2.
Right? Yeah, it's just gonna be, that would be crazy. But that's incredible news, man. Like I too loved Cloverfield and 10 Cloverfield Lane. 10 Cloverfield Lane was a cool thing that I didn't know that I wanted, that was really well done. Just had the suspense, the drama. I really enjoyed it.
It's a COVID film.
Right.
It is a COVID field.
It's a COVID field. 10 COVID Field Lane.
It is a COVID film, but yeah, that's incredible. I didn't know that, man.
Yeah, I'm looking at this this Barton. He actually apparently has a movie that's done called Invasion.
Really?
Which is a alien invasion movie that Riz Ahmed and Octavia Spencer, they have coming out on Amazon Prime sometime soon. So
I'll watch anything with Riz in it.
Oh my God, right? Yeah.
God, man.
What else, John? Anything you want to mention? News wise?
Gosh, I don't know. I mean, something I just have been witnessing. I don't know if either of you have been following this, but they've announced the release date of the Snyder Cut.
Yes.
It's March 18th. And there's been this sort of renewed war of words, or maybe never quite simmering down, but like the Ray Fisher versus DC Warner Brothers war of words, it's a very peculiar thing because, you know, they investigated his claims about abuse on the set of Justice League, specifically from Joss Whedon, as enabled by certain executive producers and, you know, folks that were working on that side of things.
Right.
And apparently this probe found that the stuff wasn't sufficient to go any further with it. And Ray Fisher has said he'll take a lie detector test, but he has also said he won't be involved in any further DC projects until they, I mean, it's a constant back and forth about what's really going on. But the most recent thing I've heard is him saying he will do everything he can to promote Zack Snyder's cut because DC can't stop him, you know, but that he's trying to sort of make a stand against the other aspects of DC. Anyway, I don't know. To me, it's just been a, you know, in some ways that is such a shit show and a clusterfuck, and every story that you hear is just one more thing that's like, what a weird movie. But at the same time, you know, the Snyder Cut's toxic fandom or no, you know, whatever you think of that movie's coming out and people are going to get to see how different the vision was. And I think it'll be sufficiently, I think it'll be different now because they've had millions of dollars and time to go and make it different. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I guess we've talked about that part of it enough, whether we're curious about it, we all are. But you know, just this media circus around it, it does seem like, I even hesitate to call it a circus because I think what Ray Fisher's going through seems to be very real and like traumatic. I don't know. What do you guys think of all that? If, you know, if you have any thoughts.
I mean, I can't imagine, you know, I've been in situations where things felt very strange, and sometimes piecing it together can be very hard, you know, unless you have an email trail or something like that or footage, you know, it's, you can't really build grounds for legal action. Obviously you can start a social media movement, but I do understand very personally how it feels to be in a work situation that feels like there's some race effect in it. You know, being told to be a representation in certain situations, like, you know, one of my jobs, like I was just sent to be in Black meetings. Like they had like, you know, education sort of organization, and they'd be like, hey, Ronald, you can help do IT for this one, you know, set this meeting up, when, you know, because it's just presence, you know, they see the Black guys helping them out, so that makes them feel more comfortable. I'm the first person that they see when meetings start, you know. Steve, you know, when you're probably on campus, it's the same thing. You're in front of the computer, you're setting up all the people that are coming from outside, so there's an immediate connection. So I felt that feeling before. And so to see this sort of play out the way that it is, I kind of feel like he could go out a little differently. It feels like he's going down like the end of Terminator. His hand is going into it feels like that. He's a robot, and it just feels like he's just kind of at the end. Does not feel good. So I don't know. I don't like the way it feels.
Well, I mean, here's the thing that I think does see. I think Warner's or DC was hoping to kind of give Joss Whedon this kind of soft reprimand. You know, he seems to be like, you know, he stepped down from that HBO project that he was working on, that show, The Nevers, that just released a trailer, and it looks like the most kind of warmed over Joss Whedon stuff you've ever seen. It looks like it might be kind of cool production values, but I don't know. It definitely has Joss Whedon written all over it from the trailer they just released. Anyway, I think a lot of times they want to sidestep actually digging in, like you're saying, Ronald, and maybe like if there's an actual accounting to be done, if there's not that direct proof, it's safer for them to just sort of quietly. Gosh, I'm not trying to compare Joss Whedon to these vile people, but it's like the Catholic Church moving a priest to a new diocese or whatever, where it's like, well, we dealt with the problem, we took him out of the situation, and we're reprimanding, but we're trying not to bring the law into this in a way, and we're trying not to do anything that reflects badly on us. So like, let's move him off this project. He'll step down from this. He'll kind of, you know, whatever. We're not going to hire him again. But I mean, the fact that Ray Fisher is kind of, you know, continuing to press the point, I do think it speaks to, like I said, something unresolved for him that seems really deep. And I know what you mean, Ronald. You can't prove it. You know, it's especially if you've been gaslit already. That's the whole premise, is that you know the fix is in. You know.
Yeah. That's unfortunate. But on the gun end of it, there's been a lot of buzz around Joker's new appearance. So Jared Leto kind of put his faith in whatever the Snyder Cut was supposed to be, and one of the terms of that was kind of a reinvention of the Joker. So there's been rumors, a lot of critics on the higher end, the more established ones, have actually seen what he looks like. Apparently, it's a two-parter where the top part really matters, and then the bottom part is very different in comparison. So I don't know what that means, but apparently his appearance is supposed to be pretty significantly different, and it will stir people up for him maybe to show up again. So.
You think it's a Krang situation where
he
has
I don't
like
know,
some kind
man.
of
I'm
face
trying
on
to
his
think,
chest?
like, what the
I'm
hell?
the real Joker.
That would be crazy if it's like his face and then like Jack Nicholson,
Jack Nicholson's
stomach. God, that would be crazy.
Oh, they can't get Jack Nicholson, so they bring in Mark Hamill because he does the cartoon voice.
Right.
They get who they can get.
I do think it's the cut though. I think it's the face. I think it's like the So Steve, I'm a huge fan of this comic book Death in the Family, where Joker dies for a year, and then when he comes back, his face is sewn onto his skin. He's
got like a face that's like strapped on, like
barely
rather
on
than
his
like
face.
rather than like surgically. It's crazy.
Barely on his face, and
it's
when
like
he comes
stretched so that the eyes are, it's meant to be like turning him into like the total horror character in a way.
Yeah.
And then he beats everybody in the police station with a crowbar, which is insane.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I think that what they're trying to do is make it a darker sort of thing. You know how Snyder is. So
you're not saying they're going gritty with this.
I think they're going really gritty.
Oh,
so to see Jared Leto excited about a movie that he potentially may have been left on weird terms.
Now, if he can get me excited, then it'll be the.
I guess that's the. I watched an interview where he was like turned like this the whole time. It was the strangest thing, and it almost was like when he laughed, it was like he had to laugh. It was like, oh, okay, social cues tell me.
He's a weird dude, man. He's a weird dude. I mean, like I respect him, like, what he does with his acting and his band, like, whatever he's got going, I can respect it. But like watching all of his press for the little things, like,
so good.
It was better. It was better than most press I've seen him do, to be honest with you. But like just some of his, he's like I almost feel like he has like a lack of emotion. Like he's so calm and metered, like with everything he says. Like even when he laughs, it's kind of like a it's like it's so slow. It's like no real emotion comes out. So I don't know. He's a very serious guy.
He's crazy. You didn't know about. Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, maybe when you're that kind of immersive actor, you don't have a real personality after a while,
Maybe.
It has to be
I met him a long time ago. Like,
really?
Like this is when I was like still in college. Like his 30 Seconds to Mars played at Towson. And I met him then, and like myself and my girlfriend at the time. And I mean, he definitely was like super, odd. But he was very like much like talking and like very like emotive, and like he was very like charismatic, and I mean he is that, but I mean like he was more like conversational, like again that was a long time ago. But I mean now every time I see him, he looks so like, I don't know, I want to say like he looks so like zen, almost like he's zened out of the moment, and he's
maybe
just
he
like,
was on coke then and he does edibles now.
That's probably what it is.
He said that he did.
Times change.
He didn't know that COVID happened. He was like, I
remember that, yeah.
At a campsite.
He like came out of some retreat or something, and whatever.
He had to do the most Jared Leto thing. He was like, "What's the most Jared Leto headline possible?"
He did not know. It's so crazy.
Right. All right. Well, let's move on. Let's go next topic. I don't know if we talked about this prior any other episodes, but this past week or the week between these two episodes was the annual Sundance Film Festival, which because of COVID and the world that we've lived in for the past year now, which is crazy that it's almost a year. So like they kind of experimented with some sort of, a virtual festival. I do think there were some like in-person, like drive-in things, like on locations out, across the country. But for the most part, those participating were doing it virtually. And so, we're going to talk a little bit about that now. I know, Ronald, you probably did attended more than any, or than either John or myself did. But you want to talk a little bit about, like, I guess your overall experience with the whole virtual nature of it all?
Sure. I mean, it kind of came down to the wire, honestly. You and I and John were talking about just seeing movies for Sundance, and it kind of hit us pretty quickly. Time is
Yeah,
a little
it's
strange
weird. Yeah,
in COVID, but
definitely.
after finding out, I did a bunch of research and I saw 6 movies. I went
Awesome.
I went ham, as they say,
Oh,
and
you.
it was an incredible experience if once you learn the system. The problem is there wasn't a tutorial that was just like, here's how it works. And you had to kind of stumble upon it, right? Because there were times when I chose some of the bigger picks. I would pick one, it would be sold out, and then it would appear again, which was very strange. And that was something that they didn't say would ever happen. But I had this faith that maybe somebody would drop out of the film or return a ticket or something like that, right? So
Right.
6 movies in about 3 days, three days or so. It was nuts. But I got Erin involved, and I think she really enjoyed it. But overall, it was, once you find out how it works, it's incredible. Like,
Yeah.
second to none, one of the better experiences I've ever had looking at films this way. And I felt like I was a part of the process. When are we ever going to go to Utah? We've been doing the podcast for several years and haven't been able to make it out there. But this offers something where, we can have something to contribute. We've all seen some movies from Sundance.
Yeah, no, it's funny because, like, I think I definitely wish I could have done more. I saw 2 movies, kind of very last minute, like just kind of try to catch something for the podcast, and some different movies so we could all kind of talk about some different things. But I think, in general, I feel like there's a lot of conversation going into this week that, like, Sundance was very light this year. And even when you kind of look at, like, some of the acquisitions, even though Apple, like, purchased Coda, which is one of the buzzed about movies this year, and I think it won like 3 or 4 of the major awards this morning, the day that we're recording this, including, I think, the Grand Jury Prize, the Audience Award, and some performance prizes. But that was a huge acquisition by Apple for, like, I think, $25 million. But I mean, in terms of, like, marquee titles, big titles, I think year over year in general, there was a lot of talk about this kind of being a light year for obvious reasons, like because of COVID, because of maybe things just weren't finished production. I don't really know. You can probably make some educated guesses as to why that's the case. But in general, as I started to kind of step through the program and read more about some of these titles, there were a lot of interesting movies here. And, documentary films, features, genre stuff, like, we kind of tried to spread it out a little bit. But I was really impressed in general with the program in general, the program itself in general. And I kind of wish that, like, these big festivals, like, that we always talk about wanting to go to, this, and specifically for me, Toronto is like the one I need to do in my life. I kind of, like, wish that there was some sort of if there would always be some sort of virtual element to these kinds of things. Just the idea of opening it up to people like us who talk about movies every week together, being able to be a part of it in some way and to experience some of these movies so early. And some of these movies won't come out until the end of this year, maybe next year even.
Yeah.
Like, last year's big movie was Minari, and, like, that's just now rolling out in theaters, obviously because of the COVID. But it's just, there's a lot of buzz to go around these festivals, and this is the first time that we've ever really been able to be a part of it. And that was like sitting down in my living room. Like, I got one of those big beanbag chairs, pull it up to the TV. Once you figure out the way the platform runs, just basically throwing it on the app on my phone and throwing it to AirPlay on my TV, and just, like, sitting back, you get the intro from the filmmakers, you get the Q&A afterwards. It was really slick. I thought the platform was really brilliant. And I think that the only thing you could probably provide feedback on, like you said, is just maybe just streamlining exactly how it worked. I don't think I had that many problems with it outside of kind of getting the app itself activated. Because I think that there's a pin you had to find that was kind of buried in your account. But that's really the biggest feedback. I mean, is maybe just, like, streamlining that first viewing experience. But in general, man, it was really cool to be able to pay $15 to get a ticket. And, you know, I saw a lot of second screening films. So, you know, the way they had it going was the premieres were like, you know, you watched it and you know, like that was the premiere, you watched it. And I don't know, I don't know if there was a time limit on those exactly, but the second screenings that rolled out, which a lot of festivals do, they'll make the big premiere screenings, and then a lot of those have the Q&As. But the second screenings, if you purchase those, like you could basically watch them within a 24-hour window of when that showing was. You know, once you started it, you had 4 hours to finish it. You could pause it, you could rewind it, you could stop it, you could start it. That's really cool. And I think that's a really interesting approach to do this. And I think, you know, maybe if there's some way to do this in the future to include people that can never get to a festival like Sundance or like Toronto or whatever it might be. I don't know. I had a lot of fun just participating in the small way that I did. And hopefully, you know, we'll talk about some of the movies here in a second, but what was your overall take, John? I mean, like, what was your experience with getting into it? You know, how you picked the movie you wanted to check out, or what was your overall take on it?
I mean, it was, I will echo a lot of what you two have said in the sense that it was kind of exciting just to like look at the Sundance roster and pick what I wanted to see from home. And it did make me think, oh my gosh, why can't all, why can't all film festivals handle it in this way? Sorry. Why can't all film festivals handle it in this way?
Yeah.
Because it does this access, this like mythical access that you hope for with these festival movies, and you do wait a year sometimes afterwards to see it. So in that sense, it was very much like, okay, like I'm reading this review of this movie that just screened at Sundance, and I'm able to go to the site and see there's a second screening in a couple days or whatever, and jump on and get a ticket. And then I suddenly became very excited. And that's what happened with the movie that I saw. And I would have liked to have seen more, but even without that festival experience of seeing a bunch of movies, I felt excited. And I didn't know about the 24-hour window or whatever. I just knew the movie was scheduled for a certain time. And so I set alarms I put on my calendar. I had my phone going. I told my wife, I was like, hey, there's a movie tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. I'm going to watch, and I got to watch it, you know, because I thought there was a 4-hour window. The verbiage on the site said there's a 4-hour window. And then I think maybe right after that, they started making it clear that anything that hadn't sold out was still available for you to screen within a certain, like a day or whatever you said, Steve. Steve. But no, it was, I liked that. I liked that feeling of excitement. I think I told you guys the fact that it was like a slightly inconvenient time that I didn't decide, and I had to be ready for it. It made me nostalgic for going to see movies in a way that I did not expect, like just having it be set at a time. And also, like, I finished watching it, and then within a couple hours, maybe even within an hour, I saw 2 or 3 people I knew on Facebook and different places on social media saying, just watch the Sparks documentary. So glad I made time for this. And I was just like, man, it got me. I mean, honestly, even talking to you now, I'm getting tingles, not because I guess I tipped my hand what movie I saw, the Sparks documentary, the Sparks Brothers, directed by Edgar Wright. But it was just that feeling of having seen a great movie and there being some buzz about something. And it did make me feel both like, oh, wow, yeah, I miss going to see movies, but also this festival thing, just this feeling of like, did you see that? Oh my gosh, that was great. You know, I don't know, word of mouth. It's really fun.
It is.
Fun to feel like you're part of it, you know, from the onset. And I'll add one thing. I have a friend who's a wheelchair user who, when COVID kicked in and quarantine happened and all this remote everything started happening, they said this just proves how easy it would have been all along to provide a remote option. So that's my thought on that.
You know, it's crazy you say that. You know, it's just a simple thing, man, that just makes things more accessible to people. You know, you do shows of people that are wheelchair users, or just, you know, can't walk around the way that they want to. You know, it's just a thing that should be emphasized more. Like, are these things accessible to people? It's super arrogant to say, oh man, we're just gonna have this thing and not have it be accessible to people that are, and there's a lot of writers, there's a lot of critics that just happen to be wheelchair users. That I don't understand why people don't make space and opportunity for people to be able to have access to media the way that, you know.
something I kept thinking about, like during the movie I was watching, like it was like COVID has done for many different venues and different, topics of conversation. Like it's really forced you to kind of readdress like missed opportunities all along. So it's like, you think of a festival and you think of like, just the existence and the funding and how they raise money and all these things. And, you've got to think that not only Sundance, but other festivals, are looking at things like this and saying, when they kind of start to release, I'm sure they'll release like numbers in terms of how attendance was and things like that. I almost feel like there's going to be some sort of a hope, and I'm optimistic that there's going to be some sort of like virtual element to a lot of these in the future, even if it's like more limited or certain level of showings or whatever it might be. But I mean, it's such an untapped resource of income for these things. If you just want to get down to like money,
Yeah.
but between us, we're talking that we picked 9 movies total, that would have never happened, and that's just the 3 of us. There's people across all over the world that participated in this that would have
Right.
never had an opportunity to. So it's like, it's an eye-opening kind of missed opportunity maybe. And that's kind of like a silver lining of this whole thing, is maybe that in the future we'll have some more access and maybe have a way to be involved in years to come. But
Yeah.
let's talk about some of the movies that we saw. So I guess, Ronald, we want to throw out just kind of like, we'll just kind of go through each of us and just talk about what we saw, some general feelings about them, and then we'll
Sure.
get to our final topic of the episode.
I saw a movie. The first one that I saw was a movie called First Date, which is a small indie film. I don't know much about any of the cast. They're virtually unknowns, but the movie is about a first date and a kid that wants to impress someone that's in the area, so he gets a car, which happens to have parts, things from a big time drug dealer in the area, and it gets fucking insane. There are shootouts, there are action scenes, lots of people die. It is a weird movie that kind of revolves around 2 kids that want to go out on a date. And funny, the date stuff is very innocent. And then everything around it is brutal. And I didn't love it, but I thought it was a solid movie, man. And I think if I give it a second watch, I bet I'll like it a little more once I got comfortable with the tone. The next movie I watched was Try Harder, Debbie Lum. So it's about a school in San Francisco, primarily Asian populated, top ranked school and one of the top ranked schools in the country. And basically it's about the program that they go through to kind of start preparing themselves for college. It's really good. And it's mainly just about managing expectations and how the world can hit you in the head. It's kind of strange. The kids are so charismatic and funny. And the perception is like, nerdy kids or whatever they label themselves as can be boring and sort of not interesting. But this is a really cool film with a lot of diverse ideas and about life in the future. It's really cool. Okay, so next, Marvelous in the Black Hole, Kate Shang. It stars this newcomer called Maya Ketch. I think that's her last name. Leonardo Nam and Rhea Perlman. Rhea Perlman plays a magician that kind of introduces magic to a kid that's going through a tough time. And it's a coming of age film. So well done. This kid Maya is somebody to watch out for, man. She is a force. She's only 13 and she plays 13. So she has a long career ahead of her. This is a film to watch. You will cry. You will lose your shit a little bit. You will laugh. It's a great movie. Next is Gerard Carmichael directed On the Count of Three. It's written by Ari Ketcher, who has written for The Carmichael Show and Rami, and it stars Gerard Carmichael and Christopher Abbott. It's about 2 friends that make a suicide pact, and it's their last day, or what they perceive to be their last day. After they're like, "Oh, we're gonna kill each other at the end of the day. Let's go through our day. Let's get everything done that we want to get done." It is insane. It's one of my favorites. Really cool concept. Gerard Carmichael plays it really natural. And, Christopher Abbott, if you know him from Girls or anything, he's really good. Night of the Kings, Felipe Lacote. Let's say, okay. Night of the King is about a Ivory Coast prison with some people that just, it's about a storyteller known as a Roman. A kid comes into a prison and becomes the Roman who tells stories to all of the prisoners in the entire prison. This is one of the rawest movies I've ever seen in my life. One of the scariest things I've ever seen in my life. Check it out. Together, directed by Nicole Beckwith. It stars Ed Helms and trans comedian Patty Harrison. It's about a 40-something-year-old man that wants a surrogate, and Patty Harrison's character volunteers. And it's a really emotionally moving. Patty's going to be a voice in Raya and the Last Dragon, for context, and she's also in the Hulu show Shrill. Really good movie. I suggest it. As soon as you hear this thing comes out, go see it. And then the last one, which is probably my favorite, is the Rebecca Hall directed Passing, starring Tessa Thompson, Ruth Negga, Andre Holland, Bill Camp, and Alexander Skarsgård. Wow. This thing is nuts. It's done in black and white. It's actually 480. It is a masterpiece. When I think about Sundance, when I think about art being pushed forward, I think about movies like Passing, Rebecca Hall's directorial debut. And for all of you that don't know, Rebecca Hall's a great actress within her own right. This is crazy. This was a film that was written during the Harlem Renaissance, a novella. And it's about Ruth Negga's character who is passing. She is a lighter-skinned Black woman that is passing as white. And she runs into an old friend, Tessa Thompson, and it's explosive a little bit. Like it just is a very crazy look at class and race and perception. And you realize that despite this movie taking place in like the 40s, not much has changed. So that is my roundup of movies I've seen. I don't mean to talk too much. I hope that I said it fast enough that.
No, that was great. Do you have a particular favorite?
So I'd say I have three that are like no. So okay, all right. So if I were a favorite, I'd say Passing, and then close right under that, I'd say Marvelous in the Black Hole. It's a I don't know, man. It's magic. It's one of those, like, the way that Wes Anderson, a good Wes Anderson movie kind of gets you. The combination of animation and stop motion and strings and stuff like that, combined with just heart.
Strings, wow.
Strings. Like marionettes.
Yeah, they do all kinds of stuff.
No, just strings.
Just strings. But yeah,
I saw that Passing. Netflix bought that, so that'll
Netflix. Oh my man!
Apparently they paid like $15 million for it, so it's like a worldwide distribution. Yeah,
Steve, that's winning awards that year. Like,
can't wait to see it.
Unreal. Wow. Cool. What about you guys?
Well, I'll go next. John, you can round us out since you teased yours already. So I saw two movies. I saw a documentary called At the Ready, which is from Maisie Crow, who did. What was a documentary? Jackson, about like the anti-abortion documentary. It's on HBO Max right now. So this doc is about basically follows a group of like kids in El Paso, Texas, that are in this school program training to be like police officers, security guards, border patrol agents, things like that. So it kind of piqued my interest only because earlier this year I talked about the documentary Boy State, which is like one of my favorite movies of the year. Kind of similar only in the sense that, it's kind of following these kids that maybe you at least hope maybe like they're not fully formed in terms of their opinions, their judgments, like, they're still open to learning about the world and maybe about the things that they're being trained to do. But it really is it was kind of interesting, kind of a look at, just law enforcement as a culture, and I guess that maybe being why it may be so hard to change a lot of that in this country. But it's cool. Like, it does the same kind of thing where, you follow like 2 or 3 key of kids, the students, different from one another in many ways, and just kind of how they're confronting some differing opinions and things that kind of conflict with their personal lives in terms of what they're learning in this program. But yeah, it's pretty good. I liked it. I don't think that got picked up yet. And then the other one I saw was called Coming Home in the Dark, and this was kind of the one that I had seen a teaser a couple weeks ago for, that looked kind of interesting to me. But basically, it's just a family kind of runs into these 2 drifters on the way home from a trip, and slowly the story kind of peels away at some sort of connection that one of the drifters has to the father of this family. And it's very tough watch. It's kind of brutal, especially in the first act, and to the point that Aaron kind of dipped out and didn't want to watch it anymore. Not in like any kind of gory or grotesque way, just it's these drifters, these guys kind of do a number on this family. But I liked it a lot, actually. I think that the guy who wrote and directed it, James Ashcroft, is kind of like one of these genre guys. I feel like they kind of pop out of these festivals every so often. Like, John had mentioned Ben Wheatley earlier, but just you can kind of see this guy kind of taking off from this. I mean, the movie kind of runs out of steam towards the end of it. There's a lot being said in the first and second act that really kind of build. A lot of great slow tension. The car ride with the 2 guys that kind of take a couple of the family members on a ride, and it's very tense, and some of it really, really works well. Like, kind of falls apart a little bit at the back end of it, but still, even still, like, some really good performances. I'm not familiar with this guy, but I guess what he's known for, the TV series, it's called The Originals. It was like a CW series. But Daniel, I think his name is Daniel Gillies. I don't know. He plays one of the drifters, like the kind of leader of this duo, and he is great in it. Like, he is super fucking creepy and very intimidating, and just just somebody you don't ever want to, goddamn, like, don't ever want to run into, And it takes place in New Zealand. It was shot in New Zealand. It's beautiful. So, like, just the scope of like this overtaking of this family by these guys with this beautiful backdrop of like this vast space in the New Zealand. It was really interesting. But yeah, I definitely like that one a lot. I'm very interested to see what this guy does next, and I would definitely recommend checking that one out. I don't think that one got any distribution yet, but hopefully it's available somewhere to watch, because it's a pretty solid thriller. That one's called Coming Home in the Dark, and those are the 2 that I saw.
Yeah, that movie sounds like one of those movies that I want to see, but I'm also like, why do I want to see that? Like, why do I want to be put on blast or have my nerves put on blast like that for the whole run of a movie? Especially because as a family, I don't know, that element always makes it so much more, because those roles,
there's kids involved, and it's like the kid, some of that stuff is the tough stuff to watch, and that's when Aaron was like, I'm out.
Yeah. But I mean, even if it's just psychological, the idea that you're tearing something apart, that you could then leave that situation and you've left a family in some kind of ruin, that to me is, even if everyone survives, then it still can be so traumatic.
Yeah.
Certainly traumatic is my buzzword of the episode. Well, the movie that I saw, as I said, was The Sparks Brothers, which is a documentary about the art rock band Sparks. They started out in the late 60s under the name Half Nelson, and they put out an album under that name, and then they kind of got rebranded as Sparks and re-released that album. And ever since then, it's just been a run of, I think, 25 records in the last, what is that now? Almost 50 years of varying degrees of acceptance by a kind of quasi mainstream following. Like they have had hits, that they did have label interest at every turn, though. Every couple 3 albums, and the movie kind of talks about this, they sort of made choices that were based on art and creativity and not based on a career. And so it is a movie where even if you're not interested in their music, or if you actively don't like their music, because their music is interesting and I love it and I always have, and they've influenced all the people that I think are cool. So they've always been that name that I heard, like, oh, Sparks, Sparks, Sparks. But even if you don't like their music, it's one of those documentaries about a band where like there's a story being told about like devotion to your craft and art and not being compromising. And you know, they're very funny. It's a very funny movie. Edgar Wright loves these guys for reasons. It's no, hold on a second. There's a cat rattling paper. Unacceptable. But the thrust of the documentary is definitely that idea of an art project, you know, that is also a band. And they happen to have, again, if you know their stuff, they have songs you can tell like, oh yeah, this is the kind of stuff that grabs the mainstream, or they were ahead of the curve with certain things in their career, like electronic music and different mixes of styles. And, you know, using humor in music is a great way to draw certain people to your music and turn other people off. And the documentary kind of addresses that, but it's more about just that these guys have been around doing it for that long. And they're, you know, it's one of those, it's still the same core members. They do change out bands every so often. There are several former members in the documentary who talk about that kind of being left by the side of the road, but they all seem to have admiration for the project. And so they say, I understand that the nature of this project was that they would eventually turn their, you know, if they brought me in the band, they would eventually probably turn away because they brought me in after turning away from someone else. So anyway, it's just I found it very moving in the, these guys have never stopped working way, but I also found it very funny. And, you know, the way documentaries use animation to kind of patch over places where they don't have video. This movie really has very fun to watch, clever, creative animation, everything from stop motion puppets to claymation to very simple, like hand-drawn animation. And it's almost like that Drunk History thing of when you have the two guys in the band, Sparks, it's the movie's called the Sparks Brothers, but that's actually like a misnomer. They hate that people think their name is Sparks. But they're the Mael brothers, M-A-E-L, and it's Russell and Ron. And they're from California. I always thought they were British. That's a thing they talk about in the movies, that people tend to think they were European because they seem that way. But hearing them talk in this kind of laid back California drawl, like one of the guys kind of sounds like Ted Levine, kind of gonna talks like this down here, you know, and it's like, well, when we were making this album, and it's just a surprise because it seems like they are larger than life characters, but the movie does this great thing of showing you their life. And it shares certain things about their childhood that make their relationship really poignant, like why they lean on each other so much and why they're brothers who depend on each other and have such an understanding. But any partnership like that is beautiful to watch in motion, you know, people who have each other's back, and a project that is fueled by that kind of closeness. The movie does not demystify them, even as it gives you that window in. So it's, in some ways, to me, it's like the perfect music documentary, but it's also just that Edgar Wright was the perfect guy to address this band's humor that is both sincere and absurd. You know, like it fits perfectly in with his aesthetic. So he made a really good Edgar Wright movie that happens to fit into their style. And I think, you know, it is almost exhaustive. That's the one thing about it too. If you're a fan of the band, they don't really skip an album or skip an era of the band, like some documentaries will kind of gloss over things. So if it feels a little long, which it didn't necessarily feel long to me, but it did feel like, wow, they're not missing a beat. You know, when they get to a certain year, you go, yep, they're going through and they're just now getting to 2000. Yeah, I recommend it. The Sparks Brothers. I don't know if this seems like a shoe-in for some kind of distribution, but I didn't see any official notice of like a release date. But I'm sure this will be coming someplace soon to someplace that's very accessible, because it seems like it was kind of a big movie of the festival.
Yeah, the trailer looked great. I can't wait to see it. So is Edgar Wright, did Edgar Wright produce it or anything? Because I see his name. Okay, gotcha. I see his name everywhere. It's like,
and his voice is, you know, when you hear the interviewer's voice occasionally in a documentary, it's him. He conducts all the interviews. Wow. And I think it helps because it meant that he could turn to everybody he was dealing with and say, are you a Sparks fan? And if they said yes, he could be like, okay, Beck, come talk about Sparks, you know? Wow. So it's like, it's cool to get those people. Scott Aukerman is in it for a few scenes. Like, it's got different people that you just love to see that, again, I kind of know, oh yeah, I've heard these people talk about music that I like. And there is something about that too. I will add that note, that idea that this is kind of an underground band in a way that's been underground for that many years. This movie is going to define them for a much more mainstream audience, provided this documentary, comes out the way that I expect it to do. So that's going to be an interesting thing for this band. This movie kind of defines them in a way that they have managed for 15 years to avoid being defined, So
Yeah.
it almost feels like a creative choice on their part to say, yes, a documentary is not like a bad artistic move somehow,
Right.
And if you see the movie, you'll know what I mean. It looks behind the curtain, but not so much that you feel like, okay, I know all about these guys. So yeah,
Cool.
I really loved it. I was kind of buzzing from it, both from it was a good movie and like creatively. I love documentaries about creative people that leave me feeling that way, just inspired.
I can't wait to see it. Yeah, the trailer was unreal, man. I'm like, this looks really good. Yeah.
Let's see what else. So I mean, yeah. So that'll. I guess that's the Sundance experience that we've had. I mean, obviously, we all had a very positive experience. Definitely, if it happens in the future that they allow people to do this again, highly encourage people to participate if you're able to. And we'll try to keep posted at least of the movies that we saw. If anything kind of gets picked up and it's going to be coming out and available, to our listeners, if you want to check out these titles. Like I said, Passing, I know, should be coming to Netflix at some point in the following year. But the other ones, if we get some news, we'll make sure we update you guys on the podcast about those. I guess before we get to the end of the podcast, we'll kind of roll it out now. We'll kind of end this episode. We're going to talk a little bit about, finally, a little more in depth about WandaVision, who we are now 4 episodes in. As this comes out, episode 5 will be airing or, dropping on Disney Plus. What do you guys think of WandaVision?
I'll first say that I was excited just with the trailer that had been shown and the promotional material, which was sitcom, and these are characters who have had strange sort of histories and in the Marvel universe. And I'd say honestly, one of them, being Wanda, had one of the weakest. Her accent has changed from movie to movie. I mean, a Russian accent to no accent whatsoever. Really strange things like that. Her not having quite as strong of a sort of path, like say the Captain Americas and Iron Mans and things of that nature. I mean, that could be for a number of reasons. She kind of came in at a different wave than some of the founding MCU members, right? But this material I was very excited about. And I can honestly say that this has been one of the coolest roller coaster rides I've ever had, especially with the idea that we haven't had Marvel material in a year, a calendar year, a real calendar year, not like, it was legitimately, we went an entire year without Marvel. And this was a welcome return in a long form that we aren't used to. So I'm excited. If this is an indication of what's to come, this unique voice that kind of came out of this feels like an isolated story. And then we find out, what we're going to talk about later. But this feels very unique. We haven't seen anything like this before. We haven't seen anything that has this scale, this tone. And I'm pretty excited.
Yeah, it was not only after a year of no Marvel, but it was a year when Marvel was kind of turning the page, So it's almost like a year that they needed to do the Black Widow movie and maybe set up some future things that we don't know yet. And I don't mean to judge these movies based on what they set up. I just still feel like Black Widow is going to feel a little bit like an also-ran in the midst of all this other stuff that's going on. But I'm hoping to be proven wrong by that movie when it comes out. But the Eternals was supposed to have come out last fall. I think we were supposed to get. Were we going to get the Spider-Man movie? Was it just going to be 2 Marvel movies last year that we were going to get?
Yeah.
Okay. But anyway, so putting a capper on an old character, getting new characters, all that was supposed to happen around the time these shows were finding their way. And I think they were supposed to start coming out in the fall of last year. Yeah. And it was going to be Falcon and Winter Soldier that was going to come out first. It almost feels like this show is the better option, though, because it is such a bolt from the blue of something different. And it does have people talking in a way that, honestly, I feel like The Mandalorian sort of manages that sometimes. But this show feels like, it's all over my feed when it comes out. So much so that I actually have to avoid reading too much or looking too hard, because you'll see a character mentioned that you're like, oh, and this was the week. I guess let's get spoilery. We're at the end of the episode, folks. You can hop off if you haven't been keeping up with WandaVision, but this was the week where they really stepped outside what the marketing has been showing us. And I don't know if you guys looked at that clip I sent you of the marketing for the next episode that is out today when this episode comes out, that we haven't seen yet. They're marketing it differently now, because now they can tip their hand a little bit more about what they have. This is more like the real trailer for the concept, whereas before they were teasing us. And I think last time we talked about this, from having seen the first couple of episodes, I said I like that Marvel's getting to do this, that Marvel's getting to sort of string us along a little bit, because I think they've got the goods. They've got, again, the acting, the style of this show has been so rewarding and so fun that, like, I wonder if this is a much better way back into this world that we didn't get any of last year than the Falcon and the Winter Soldier storyline, which might be more grounded and less kind of mind-blowing. This is really something different. And I'll double what you said, Ronald. This is a great payoff for what comics fans know about Scarlet Witch as a character, just that she has been kind of unfulfilled in terms of her potential by what we've seen in the movies. I really think this peeling back of the layer to see that we don't know fully what's going on, but we know that the world that they're in, this sitcom world, is somehow at least augmented by Wanda's magic, and that she's apparently doing some kind of coping with a traumatic experience. There's my buzzword again. Coping with trauma by creating this false reality. So the questions we have now are much more like, well, wait, how real is the Vision then? And is there some other force behind this that's making her do this or taking advantage of her? But, seeing Jimmy Park and is it Jim Park? James Park? What's his name?
Randall Park?
Randall Park.
Randall Park.
Actor's name. The character's name is Jimmy Woo, right?
Jimmy Woo.
Right.
Yeah. Seeing Randall Park and what's her name, Kat Dennings, pop up in this kind of commentary, like their little comments about what's happening here. It's like, oh, it's a sitcom with two Avengers in it. It's like, that's the line that belonged in the trailer at the beginning, but they couldn't do that. And I love that they finally got to have that meta moment that didn't break the world, because it still feels grounded. And I love, heck, those characters, people are saying they'd watch a show with Kat Dennings and Randall Park. And I mean, you say that about every character in the Marvel universe. It's a little silly, but I do think they seem to know what they're doing, I guess is my point, with this expansion of the storyline. And it actually feels like something kind of maybe more exciting than again, Black Widow, which would have been the next movie.
Yeah. I think after that last episode, kind of being able to, that's kind of the episode you need to get to. I feel like, we were definitely in on the series from 1 through 3. I really kind of was enjoying the decade approach, these sitcoms, and or at least what they perceive to be these decades of sitcoms, and like kind of sort of seeing like little cracks in these narratives or in these stories that we're in, little glitches in the matrix or, whatever they were. But, this was a really interesting episode, and it really is kind of like, for the MCU fan, again, we're talking spoilers right now. So if you haven't seen episode 4 of WandaVision, stop the pod, check it out, come back later.
Stop the pod.
But I think just the idea that they could really kind of tie in, you have that moment, with, seeing another experience on the other side of the snap, or the event, from Infinity War and Endgame and things like that. You see, another build out of the world, with characters that we don't know, or we didn't know then, at least, and kind of what their impact would be on the MCU as a whole. So, to kind of see characters like Rambo and Jimmy Woo and Kat Dennings' character kind of talk about post snap, and and Sword talk about the protocol that they've created for people coming out of it, or people returning from it. That was just it's like a whole nother layer that they've been able to add to the MCU. And,
I was giddy. I was giddy when they did that, Steve. I was I was sitting there going, "Oh, this is so neat that we're getting to see this." That's a great way to introduce that character back into the time stream, kind of.
Yeah.
And it's just it's just like I mean, we always talk about it, and they're so good at what they do. It's like the best thing out there. Your taste in whatever film, whatever that was standing, the way they handle it all is just phenomenal. In terms of production and things like that, there's nothing done better right now. In my personal opinion, in movies than the way that Feige handles the MCU. Yeah, so it's like a giddy moment. It's just an exciting moment to be like, oh, like I know what happened after the snap. Oh, they showed stuff in Ant-Man and the Wasp. They showed stuff, in Spider-Man Homecoming, and they showed, or Far From Home. And, there's lots of perspectives that we got to see in a world that was after this happened.
Yeah.
But this one specifically feels really significant because in some ways even more than what we've seen elsewhere, just because you get to see how it impacts characters that we've never seen before.
Yeah.
And then how that intertwines with the character that we have spent a lot of time with Scarlet Witch, with Wanda, and this version of Vision, and these characters that are living inside of this bubble that she's created. I think one of the coolest things in the episode that I really loved was like, when they were making that board of like the people playing the roles that she's created in this bubble. That is just like, that shit is just awesome to me. Like the fact that they've gone through and like they figure out a way to find who these real people are. Just like a little detail, that I think is just so smart, and I'm sure will come back up over these episodes. And I'm sure those names that you're hearing, these people's names and this board that we've seen, I'm sure Jimmy will have more to say about, who these people are and why these people. I don't know, just expands on the whole thing of like, I think the whole mystery of it is handled so well. And I think that is kind of what keeps you coming back. And I think that now that like you said, John, like they've kind of gotten past the point of like, it's not just this like episode weekly decade thing. It's like, oh, it's like broken now. And we kind of know what's going on sort of. And it's like, there's gotta be something more sinister at play or some factor in it that is more sinister. It's just a matter of, or who or what or where it is.
Yeah.
So does that little flash of the Vision with his dead face, his dead head, with
the
his
missing stone,
with his missing stone, but also he looked kind of like he was. I mean, that guy was gone.
That was haunting.
Does that mean that she's reanimated his dead body with magic, or was that just like a conceptual flash that she knows he's dead and so she was seeing that? Because he seems to have free will of his own. He seems to be like acting opposite her. Now they could make an argument that he's somehow some manifestation of some subconscious thing of hers, but I almost think it'll be narratively unsatisfying if his presence in the story is completely a projection. That fits a storyline if she, if this is a traumatic thing, coping mechanism of hers. But I don't know. I didn't know if you guys had any thought about what the state of the Vision is, because one of the things they showed in the trailer for this week, which again, if people watched Wandavision before they're listening to the show, they officially know more than we do. So we're like Wanda trapped inside our false reality. We don't know. They're outside. But we don't know if in that episode, that trailer showed Vision trying to kind of push through the barrier. So I'm wondering, what if he walks through that barrier and gets to the other side and he's just zombie Vision and he just falls down because he's outside the magic? I don't know, but he seems like he is a separate entity or some kind of physical being. So I find it that
somebody like playing him.
Well, that's one of the, or just one of the bigger, right. It could be somebody playing him, or there is some manifestation of him that's really real that has come back through her. I don't doubt that he might be dead at the end of this series, but I also could believe they can use this series to find a way to bring Paul Bettany in some form back into the world, because the Vision is a weird magical character who's kind of a robot. There's so many ways he can be brought, in the comic thinking, he's been brought back different ways before. So they can have him back, but to me, that's the biggest question, is like, what's up with Vision? And of course, the other question of like, who's behind it all. But yeah, it's just fun to see this like her power. You really are seeing how reality bending her power could be. And if she goes off the deep end, you see the kind of damage she could do. So it is cool, and it's a little creepy that it's creepier than the other Marvel stuff has been. If it's true what they've said, that this sets up Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, is that what it's called?
Yeah.
I could see how the kind of creep factor of this show could get amped up to be, genuinely disturbing, or at least as disturbing as they want a 4-quadrant movie to be.
Yeah. I think the villain is the acting head of Sword, the whatever division Monica Rambeau's in.
You think he seems too much of a decent kind of bland guy?
He said acting, and I think that's a part of the whole thing. I know that's like a simple thing to say, but I think it's an entendre. I think he's like, I'm acting like I'm this person when I'm actually God, and he stabs somebody.
So what if he's not the villain on this show, but he turns out to be a Skrull? later. They could start laying in those Skrull characters right
That
now.
would be really cool. But I was going to say one of the things that I think is really cool. I mean, you touched on a little bit, Steve, but the idea of like, you see Randall Park's character who is in Ant-Man. The passage of time was shown in Ant-Man. So if you've seen that movie and you're familiar with that character, then you're familiar with the way that time works during the snap. And there's something really cool about Endgame and Ant-Man and the passage of time, and then it being like, remember how that worked? Here's the daughter of this person. You remember that kid from Ant-Man? She grew up a little bit. So there's a passage of time. So you understand the way things work. They don't try to present a concept to you that's existed for a while that isn't grounded in anything that we hadn't seen before.
Right.
It's not like, you don't look at something and are like, it was this all along. It was not this. And then it morphs into something else. It just has always been in front of you. And I think that's so cool, man. Are we looking at the devil? I mean, people have theories that the devil is there. Is it Mephisto?
Mephisto, yeah.
People have people have theories that demonic character is incarnated as some character in the world. Some believe it's Randall Park, which is very interesting. Yes, so I've heard that many places that he could be the person all along, and he's gonna just be like, "Brah, I'm evil," and then
it seems like a weird use of his character. When they
weird,
when they brought him into this role, especially because they gave him that great card snap moment. I loved that.
That he learned that. Yeah.
I mean, talk about a callback. You're right, Ronald. Moments like that, they seed things in, they pay it off. Right now, they've seeded so many things in that they can pay off, and they're smart about calling back things that make it seem like they set it up, even if they didn't. So they're in a really good place. And what you said, Steve, about the management of these properties. I hate to say properties and management when I'm talking about stories that I love and characters that I love, but you do sort of trust that they're going somewhere, and you do sort of trust that you're going to be satisfied at the end of this series, and yet you're also going to be going, oh man, I can't wait to see where that goes now, and that's a lot of people are trying to do that and not doing it as well
and failing.
Yeah, you say management because we have seen mismanagement.
Yes,
we've seen it fail on a real level, and we
talked about it earlier in this podcast. We talked about the Snyder Cut.
Yes.
Yes. And we're seeing it kind of move. So I guess in terms of, I guess we have a snapshot. We have 4 episodes. Are you confident about, this show and then Falcon and the Winter Soldier's next? How you guys feeling with 4 episodes into our first Disney Plus Marvel MCU situation? How do you feel about the shows to come?
I'm pumped.
Yeah.
I'm in.
Yes.
I'm in. I mean,
and it's going to be straight through. Like basically, when this ends,
it's a no-brainer.
Falcon and Winter Soldier kicks in, and when that ends, you got Loki coming in. So it's like if they can keep this, this management of these properties and franchises, if they can keep that going, then it's great to get that weekly dose of this flavor that I missed.
Yeah. And this had to come out before Black Widow, right? They said that there's something about this movie, something about this show that had to come out before Black Widow. So
Black Widow was originally going to come out long before this, though. So
something's different about something's happening. They said that the order has changed because of
is it that Florence Pugh's character is in Winter Soldier?
I think that's what it is.
That's what I heard.
I think that's what it is.
Is in what? Oh,
is in Winter Soldier. I think
Falcon.
Right.
So they had to. Gotcha. So the order had to change a little bit because of it. But that makes sense. And then
I also saw like, so this would be Tuesday, or maybe it was this morning or Wednesday morning. There was an article that Elizabeth Olsen had said that there's like a really big cameo whatever type deal at the end of this at the end of this season. That's kind of like they were talking about it in relation to Luke popping up at the end of season 2 of The Mandalorian, that apparently some big character from the MCU.
So who do you think?
It could be Doctor Strange. I don't know who. It seems like it's him, but I mean that seems, especially because they've been so forthcoming about like the tie-in to the next film. But I mean, I don't know.
I think
I'm excited to see what it is.
Fantastic Four. That's my theory. Because so my
You always
theory
go big with your theories, Ronald.
well, this is why. Because Shield is on the ground.
Maybe we should put some more ice cream on this.
We should.
Ice cream we've
A
never
pint.
eaten, and now who knows when we will ever be
I
able
know.
to do it.
We're double down on this shit.
So here's my
Little
theory.
scoop.
Yeah.
Shield is on the ground, sword is in the air, and I think that it's going to have something to do with the Fantastic Four and whatever, because they can use the word mutants now. They couldn't before. What's going to happen with that? There's going to be some mutants. We're going to see some mutants created.
I don't know when they'll do that, but I do believe that what you said, Steve, I kind of, so your vote's for Fantastic Four. I think we have 2 Doctor Stranges and a Fantastic Four.
Yeah.
But I feel like that's the most, like, it will excite me even if I'm expecting it, because it could be done well. But they sort of have alluded to, like you said, the fact that they've been upfront about it being a setup for that movie feels like, you know, that's who you would expect for it to be. And also he seems like the guy who would come in and clean up this kind of mess if he was available. So
I'd really like if Doctor Doom was the next big villain like Thanos. That would be fucking amazing.
Well, they can lay in Doctor Doom references now. What if they
Yeah.
bring in Doctor Strange at the end of the season, but they digitize like Mark Hamill's face really awkwardly onto his, and it's not convincing, and it wrecks the drama of the scene just a little bit.
And there's no light hitting his face whatsoever. It's just porcelain white skin and no reaction to lighting whatsoever.
And then you just cut to a sweaty Pedro Pascal acting his face off, and then cut back to the Marvel characters.
That would be great.
Yes, it would be awesome.
Yeah.
That'd be a surprise.
So yeah, I'm curious what it is or who it is. I mean, yeah, it seems like it. The logic is strange, but you know, maybe something crazy's out there like Fantastic Four. Maybe.
Yeah.
So
That's all we know now.
Yeah, that's it. We'll be watching episode 5 as this episode drops. So I'm sure we'll talk more about it next week. Do you guys have anything else you want to mention real quick before we wrap up?
I think that's it for me. You guys have anything?
No.
I wanted to just throw out a quick recommendation. I finally got around to seeing a movie called Save Yourselves.
Oh.
Have you guys seen this?
I've seen it's Hulu, right?
That's
it's on Hulu.
I've seen like the little, splash page for it. It's trying to make me watch it. I should check it out.
The end of the world thing? Is that
it's trying to make you watch it? End of the world. Yeah. It's John Reynolds and from Search Party and Sunita Mani from Glow. They basically just play like this couple that decide to kind of go off the grid, get rid of their, turn the cell phones off, go live out in this or rent this cabin out for a week. And when they choose to do that, like Earth is invaded by these like alien creatures, and it's kind of like the catch up to that. I don't know. I thought it was really funny. I thought it was really good. I think again kind of sort of falls apart towards the end, because I was like going 2/3 into this movie, like this might be one of my favorite movies of the year.
Oh wow.
And then it kind of like, because it was just super funny, like it was really kind of consistently funny. And a lot of really great jokes about like just, I don't even know, millennial culture, just like that type of the type of couple that they play in the movie. But it was just very funny. It kind of again wobbles towards the end. It still ends pretty good, but I would recommend that. Anybody has Hulu, it's on there now. It's called Save Yourselves.
Okay.
And the other one I wanted to mention is called, I saw Synchronic, which is Justin Benson, Aaron Moorhead, who did like The Endless, was I think the last movie they did. With this one is Jamie Dornan and Falcon himself, Anthony Mackie. They kind of like these two guys. They just got announced as doing some of the episodes of the Moon Knight series on Disney Plus, tying back into Marvel. But if you've seen any of their other movies, definitely recommend it. It's one of their more mainstream and more accessible. Like they kind of do a lot of trippy, heady sci-fi kind of drama-y stuff. This one basically is about a designer drug that when you take it, based on the physical location that you take it, like it kind of transports you to another point in time that happens. in that location. And it's really cool how they explain it. Like they basically like explain it like the tracks on a record, how like they're all spinning at the same time and the needle kind of jumps from one to the next.
Oh.
And this drug kind of takes them to these places, or takes one of them to these places. But I really liked it actually. And I've liked most of the stuff that they've made. So I would definitely recommend that as well. That's on like a lot of the PVOD services. But that again is called Synchronic. But yeah, those are the two other things that I checked out this week that I just wanted to bring up on the podcast.
Yeah, I'll check them out.
If you guys are good, we're going to wrap this up. Movieschmovie.com is the site, facebook.com/movieschmovie. And you can subscribe on any podcast platform. You should be able to. And if you can't, let us know. If you do subscribe on Apple Podcasts, please leave a star rating, or maybe if you're feeling generous, even a worded review. It would be greatly appreciated. And yeah, next time we come back, like I said, we'll talk next week. We'll probably discuss a little bit about WandaVision, maybe catch up a little bit some of the episodes that have come out on Servant season 2 as a quick recap, and then I'm sure we'll come up with something between now and then to talk a little bit more next week. I'm sure we'll be talking about Judas and the Black Messiah, which is the next big HBO Max title next week. But I think that'll wrap it up for episode 285. Thank you guys for listening. Thank you two for talking again.
Thank you, Steve.
Another week in a row with me and on this podcast. And as always, you've made our day. Thanks.
Bye.